94. Let's get to May December, which is a Netflix original. It's directed by Todd Haynes, stars Natalie Portman, Julianne Moore, Chris Tenzis, Charles Melton, and a few others. And the synopsis is 20 years after their notorious tabloid romance gripped the nation, a married couple buckles under pressure when an actress arrives to do research for a film about their past. So, this one is based off, at least inspired by, a true story where like a mid 30s woman got involved with a early teen boy, like 12, 13 years old, and it was this huge, of course, a huge tabloid thing. And didn't know anything about that going into this. I had no idea what this movie was about. All I knew it was done by Todd Haynes, who had done Carol, which I loved, and he had also done Dark Waters recently, which I really enjoyed. I think he's a very unique auteur director, so I was in for that. I love Natalie Portman and Julianne Moore, so there's a lot of things that were drawing me in, and I heard very favorable things about it. And I've only seen it once. I think that it is a grower, not a shower. And I don't think I love the movie yet. I love Carol. I loved it the first time I saw it, and I think Dark Waters is maybe about on par with this one. Maybe I like Dark Waters a little more, which I think that one is very underrated, which deals with fracking and all that in a great Mark Ruffalo film too. This one, it's hard to really talk about properly because it's so out there and it's so uncomfortable and bizarre, especially considering it happened in one way or the other to a certain degree. I think that above all, it's very well directed. Natalie Portman, Julianne Moore, and Charles Melton are incredible and it, like unbelievably good. And they're so, what's crazy is, and I'm glad I waited a little while to talk about it after having watched it because I feel like it's just been starting to hit me now. A lot of those performances by the leads, they seem fairly normal, like kind of plain, but it's really that they're so restrained and nuanced that I really feel like, as cheesy as it sounds, it's like hitting me now, like a long time after I've watched it. And so I think they are fantastic. I mean, Todd Haynes always gets great performances. He's a very thoughtful filmmaker. The overall story, it does do a good job on, I guess, one thing, speaking to tabloid, news stories, but also deals with method acting and how at times toxic that can be and ridiculous. It can be where Natalie Portman has to learn everything about this. She has to do the movements, like every little thing about Julianne Moore, who she's trying to portray in a movie. Like, I have nothing against method acting. Like Daniel Day-Lewis, for example, one of the best actors ever, in my opinion. He's a method actor for the most part, from what I understand. But I don't think there's an issue with that necessarily, but it does do a good job of how some people, and we hear stories now of method, quote unquote, actors doing ridiculous things in order to stay in the character. And so I think it does a good job on that. So there are a lot of things going on. It's a very, very unsettling movie to watch. It almost is like a horror movie at times in terms of how characters are talking to each other. Julianne Moore is basically in denial about everything. She thinks, oh, well, this is just, my life. I got imprisoned for it, but we're happy now. And she's in this very state of like obliviousness and dreamland, essentially, for the craziness of her relationship. And then Natalie Portman's character really kind of going over the edge, trying to figure her out, and you not knowing, all right, is she actually like on board with Julianne Moore now? Like, is she like wanting to be her actually, or is she just acting? And then Charles Melton's character, who's the husband of Julianne Moore, being a like mid-30s guy who has a teenage son who's, I think, about to go to college. And I think one scene that's great is when they're both sitting on the rooftop talking, and he doesn't even really know how to talk to his son because he never really had a proper or normal teenage life. And now he's in this weird state where the son could almost be like his friend. And then he's the same age as Natalie Portman. So it's a very weird dynamic, but it all works fairly well. One thing, though, that I don't love is the score. Maybe I'll like it on rewatch. I understand it's meant to be very over the top melodramatic, that sort of thing. Didn't totally work for me. I don't think it really needed to be there for it to get the message across, the genre and style across. I don't totally love it at this point. I know some people do. Maybe I'll get there. I'll let you know. But I think it's very worth watching. There's nothing else really like it. I think in terms of how it explores some of these very scandalous, ridiculous, bizarre, disturbing ideas and situations, and amongst many other things. And above all, just watch it for the performances and the craft overall. Like, I don't think it's a masterpiece at this point, but it is still very, very unique. And Todd Haynes clearly, again, is a very refreshing, original, compelling voice in. I mean, I guess you can call it art house in a way. I just wish that it had been released more theatrically rather than Netflix, because I think he's better suited for theater experiences rather than on a streaming service, but is what it is. So that one is a light 4 out of 5.